So we have a special guest today. Jen is here back with us today. We're going to talk about using media to expand your market. Now, when we talk about media, it's a general word media because times have changed. Media back in the day was like television and radio, and now it's expanded to podcasting. And I think what's important is not necessarily which media you choose, but the message that you put out there. Because what we're choosing to do is we're choosing to go consumer direct. And there's reasons why we're going to want to go to consumer direct, and we'll talk about that. But we're going to go consumer direct to create a broader outreach, because the reality is that realtors don't have enough business to give us today. But not only that, but I'm going to be talking about this a lot. If you haven't already heard me say this 27 times, which is we're moving into the age of the modern mortgage originator for very good reasons. And we're going to break that down again, because then you'll understand. Because what's going to happen is you've probably listened to a webinar like this before where they're like, oh, you should do a podcast, you should do radio, you should do some type of mass media. And you're going to walk away thinking the same thing. Sounds good, but I don't know why I should do it. The reality is that today's market, there's overwhelming reasons why you should do it. There's overwhelming reasons why you should go consumer direct. So Jen, welcome back. You're with Hometown Lenders in Ohio.
In a small town in Ohio.
Small town in Ohio. So I will say too that she's in a small market. And I said, that's fine, because I've got a lot of clients, a lot of students in small markets. We have to address the small markets and the big markets. If you're in a bigger market, we just have to do some tweaks with how you approach it, but the messaging is still the same. Jen, let's give a background of it, because I think the why behind it is really important, not just what you do and how you do it, but the why behind it. Consumer direct for you has always been really important, especially now with realtors. What are you seeing with realtors? And you started consumer direct 10 years ago, and it's really created a lot of momentum in terms of being mortgage famous and getting more referrals. But what are you seeing today in terms of why consumer direct was important to you to begin with? Like, why did you start, and why it's even more important today to do this type of messaging, especially with like realtors the way they are. Like realtors are really thing. Like your realtor.
For me, so when I got in the business, we were doing trigger leads, which I hate now, but we did triggers. And so I was consumer direct when I got in, and then the crash happened. We didn't have the money. So we pivoted to starting to do purchases and working with realtors. And then when I started at Hometown almost 10 years ago, they said they had a radio platform. And I was like, yeah, I'm not paying for that. Because I just trained myself to not do that. I spent money on agents and taking them out, coffee, lunch, whatever. But we did it for 90 days the first time. We did AM, and I broke even. And I was like, guys, listen, I'm not in business to break even. I'm in business to make money. And so I didn't lose anything, but I don't really think it worked. And they wanted me to change the platform and the type of station I was using. That was double the money. And I was like, no way, no shot I'm doing that. So they said, we'll pay for it for you because we know it works. And they paid for it, and it immediately, now this is not, I need little asterisks, the results may vary. That time it worked immediately. It doesn't always do that, but I think that doing it consistently like anything else will work if you have the right message. So we went from AM to country. I've never heard myself on the radio, ever, not one time. I hate country music. So if I'm in a store, I might hear myself, but other than that, I've never heard myself. And I've been doing it for 10 years. So I think that you've got to find a market that works. And maybe even if you're in a large market, maybe you just do radio in a smaller market where it's more affordable. So there are a lot of different ways to do it. You don't have to be in the market that you're even doing the radio advertising. But I feel like now buyers start their path in a different place. So I told Khai when we spoke before that I have a broker that I also do a radio show with. And we were talking about consumer direct and radio. And he said in 1995, when Realtor.com was created, it took some of the control from the agents as to where they were starting their journey. And then when Zillow came on the scene, then it changed it again. It took more power away from the agent. And then he said, and you take a loan officer like you that knows how to market, knows how to do things, and that takes even more control away from the agent. So and these are his words, he's like, they're dumbasses because they don't realize that they're losing all the control because they're not marketing themselves. So I think that's really in a lot of markets. I know that some people are younger and they'll come in and they'll do something. What I've seen over the years, agents come in, they're hot and heavy for 12 to 18 months, and then you find out what kind of agent they're really going to be. And it's easy for me in my market to see that, probably easier than for you guys in larger markets. We have about 280 agents in our whole association. So it's really easy to see when new ones come in and how fast that they burn out. So I watch that. I'm a student of people and I like to watch those things and see how it happens. And I think that's why it's more important to do consumer direct than ever. And for me, it's about at bats. So I get substantially more at bats than all my competition because I do all the extra things that I do. So in our market, we're in a town of 22,000 people, a county of 75,000, and we get anywhere from 150 to 200 applications a month. So now there's a lot of bad credit in there, but that's also a future pipeline. So we refer those people out. But the thing I think that people don't realize is that those people are also that's working when you're not working. So that radio is going when I'm not out talking to agents or doing anything else. It's constantly being played. So it's just like another salesperson that is out there working for you. And it's all about the repetitiveness of it, consistency. So my rep told me when I started radio, people have to hear it 8 times before it clicks. And there's a way to do it, and there's a way to say the same thing every single time. And so clients come in and they're like, oh, I know your phone number, 851-4760. So is that because I say my phone number on every ad? It is. But my website is also my phone number. So when I end, and I do this with video too, when I end anything, it's call me right now at 740-851-4760. You can apply online at 851-4760.com. You can find me on Facebook at Homelines by Jen, or you can always stop in the office at 109 West Main Street and see us to get started today. So every single thing I do for 12 years has ended like that. And I think that's really important, whether you're doing video or you're doing radio, is the consistency and saying it the same way every time. But like the phone number thing for the website, I thought that was the dumbest thing ever. I'm like, what? And I didn't have a cool number, right? It's not 123 home. It's a stupid number. It's a number I've always had. And it doesn't matter. That's the dumbest number ever, but it still works.
So let's break down. Actually, one thing that you said is that consumers are starting the home process differently. That's the reality. Consumers are just doing things differently. They're consuming differently now. And for those of you that heard me say that, there's the age of the modern originator, which we need now because we have the modern consumer. The modern consumer is now, we're dominated by millennials now. Millennials have turned 40. So that kind of gives you an idea where if you're in the generation of we can do old school business and pick up the phone, millennials and Gen Z don't even pick up the phone. I probably have a higher chance of reaching them on an IGDM or Snapchat or something like that than them picking up the phone. Although you just talked about your phone number, that's a little different case too. In terms of they're ready to pick up the phone when they're ready to engage with you. But in terms of outreach and marketing, anything else, they're not going to engage with you if you just call them. And the thing is that realtors are also facing the same dilemma right now, because the reality is that the majority of realtors over the last 20 years, what have they done to get business? They've either door knocked, they've called, they set up appointments, but it's the realtors now that are marketing in a very modern way. They're dominating social, they're dominating video, they're dominating education that is creating business. And what's happening is if you guys look at a lot of your realtors today that are struggling, ask yourself this question: why are they struggling? And what are they doing for marketing? And they're probably struggling because they haven't come into the modern age. If you don't see their presence on social, if you don't see educational videos, if you really don't see their presence at all and you don't know what they're doing, that's why they're struggling. That's why realtors are going from giving you 20 deals a year to now 2 deals a year. And so you have to ask yourself this question: if the realtors are dropping the ball on marketing, then we have to pick up the pieces, right? And it's the person fastest to media that's going to do that, and how we consume. The referral of the future sounds more like this. It's not just, oh yeah, somebody gave me your name and I guess you're supposed to be good at mortgages. The referral of the future is more like, I saw a video of you on my friend's social media explaining the differences between a 2-1 buy down or doing a seller concession, and you had a really beautiful illustration. I thought it was very comprehensive, and it's the best thing that I've seen. And I've done some research. I did some Google research and I found your reviews. And I've also seen other videos of you, and I would like to talk to you about doing a mortgage. That's the referral of the future. So what is your presence? And it can be scary for a lot of people because we're not doing this. We're used to just engaging with people one-on-one and getting business. And that's fine in a market where there's a lot of business. But when there's less business, you have to stand up. And what you're doing is you're picking up the pieces. And so the thing about Jen is that you become like mortgage famous. It's like when somebody wants to talk to a loan officer in your market and then they talk to you, they've probably heard your name at least 10 times in some other place.
And it also makes it easier for the agents to refer you. So I think as if you're not in a big bank, a big box bank, then people haven't heard of all these random mortgage companies. So when you're doing these things, then they say, oh, yeah, I've heard of her. I heard her on the radio, or I saw her on TV, or I saw her on social. So I think it makes it even easier for your agents to refer you. And it's awkward, right? So I'm 50, like I'm not young by any stretch. And I started doing video.
You're very young, by the way. 50 is very young. Don't
right, because you're almost there. But I went to one event prior to the one you were at about video in 2010. So I started doing video in 2010. I was not good at it. It was terrible. I was awkward. I felt self-conscious. But at the end of the day, that's what I look like when I go to the store. That's what I sound like when I talk to people. I thought, oh, I sound stupid. I look fat, blah, blah, all the things we tell ourselves. And at the end of the day, that's just what I look like. And so if they're choosing me to do their mortgage because they don't like my hair, am I allowed to cuss on here?
Yeah.
No, fuck them, because I don't really care. And I've done a podcast with an agent, and so a few years ago, I started being very open about my story. And I think that's part of your messaging. So people are probably sick to death in my market hearing me talk about the market crash and me filing bankruptcy and having a foreclosure. And for a long time, I didn't tell that story because I thought, who in the hell is going to call me for a mortgage when I can't even keep my own house? I really felt that way. And then I started following Gary Vee, which that's my celebrity crush. And I went to a couple events he had and met him and talked to him about it. And he's like, that's your power. Your power is the comeback from that. And I started to think about it. That really is that's the American story, right? The comeback. And I feel like gotten a little away from it in America, but they like to tromp people down and keep them down. But still, people like to hear inspiring stories. So I have started sharing that a ton in the last few years. And I get so many messages and people apply. If you can come back from that and be where you're at, then I can do this. And I think that's really important, to share your story and not the pretty, happy sunshine story if that's not what it is. I think you need to be honest. And people want to know you, like you, trust you. It's just the same old shit as sales, but you just have to teach them about you in different ways now versus through an agent, and the agent is telling your story for you, which I am not in favor of at all. I don't want them to tell anything about me. I want to be in control of my story. So if you don't tell your story on social or on radio or on TV, someone else is going to tell your story for you. And I promise you it will not be the story that you want told.
Yeah,
It's just the way it is.
So at the age of the salesperson only is going to be dead soon.
Mm-hmm.
The way we're doing business right now. So this is a marketing business now. This business
100%.
And you have to be good at sales to close, because I know a lot of people that are really good at marketing and they can't close the sale. But the sales only business, which is I just need a phone. And don't get me wrong, sales is great when you need business, but it's not what you do to establish long-term business, and it's not what you do to do a big outreach. And I've had conversations with people about this as we slowly start to transition into content. But I think that there's this, I guess, this little debate, like, should it be whenever I publish myself on social, or whether I do video or I do a podcast or I do a radio, am I only talking about mortgages? Am I talking about my private life and me? And the reality of it is it has to be both. Okay. It has to be both, because you have to think about something. There's a lot of people that teach presentation and speaking, but there's one thing that they don't really emphasize a lot. And I think it really matters the most. And it was what I was taught. So I remember once, it was one of my early speaking events in 2007 with Tim Brahim. And I remember I got off stage and everybody's clapping, everybody had a good time. And then Tim says, hey, let's go to lunch. And he said, let's talk about your presentation. And I said, okay. And I thought he was going to talk about maybe some points that I made or some slide that I had. And he said, let's talk about the 3 jokes that you told. Right. That's what he said. Let's talk about the 3 jokes that you told. He says, the first joke, I loved it. You have to pause a little bit more, wait for them to laugh. The second one, I would have led up to them differently. And I looked at him and says, why are we talking about my 3 jokes? I knew, but I just wanted to ask him. He said, because that's what entertains people. That's what gets people to continue to listen. He says, I was actually more captivated with the 3 jokes that you told, more so than the content. And so if everybody ever follows me on social media, I'm probably a little bit extreme, but it's all personal. But I've captivated a huge audience. And I would say probably 70% of the time when somebody calls me about coaching, they say, I followed you for years. You're funny as shit. And I see what you're doing and you must be successful. And I want to talk to you about coaching. And I know that you do coaching. And some people say, I feel like we're the same type of person that I could actually listen to you and I could relate to you. And I think that's really important. You said something earlier when we were speaking that not to make it a mortgage only message. And like, you've got a friend that does like a wrestling podcast, for example.
Yeah.
And to
Yeah.
make
So I think he's got well over 1 million downloads on this wrestling podcast. And so what he started to do was he ran ads for his own mortgage business on his podcast. There's always ads in there. He just ran them for himself versus somebody else doing it. And then he started getting referrals. So that is, he believes, and I think it's probably true, is that no consumer is going on to Apple and saying, I want a mortgage podcast. They're probably not. Those are all mortgage people or a realtor where they're going to listen to this wrestling podcast. And he's got all these people on there. And he also married Ric Flair's daughter. So that came later after he started the podcast. But he said, I believe that it just needs to be about something else. He said, I don't Google podcasts about life insurance. I don't Google podcasts about car insurance or financial, and maybe financial stuff we might. But if I need my car fixed, I don't listen to an auto mechanic podcast. So I think that's a very good point. I think that you can do it, again, pepper in what you're doing, because again, you're talking about you and what you do. So that's, I think, super important too, to think that maybe you don't do one just about a 2-1 buy down. Maybe you do one about something.
What I heard was, if I want to date a famous person's daughter, I should start a podcast.
Probably. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure.
It's interesting. He's not on this call, but I have a client student, Arjun Dingra. Everybody should follow him. I guess I'll type his name. But his brother, Neil, they're both huge video. And the other day, and Arjun he's really blown up in terms of his production. The other day I went on his Instagram and I realized he had 90,000 followers. And I said to myself, wow, 90,000 followers, that's a lot, because I have 1,500 followers on Instagram, maybe 2,000. And I said to myself, if I had 90,000 followers, like how much would my exposure change in my business and my leads change? And I think that's the thing that everybody has to think about right now, is that how do you get viewership, subscribers, and people to listen to you? That's the bottom line. If you could put yourself in front of, so a lot of people have called me lately because I was on Mortgage Marketing Radio. It's a podcast by Jeff Simfer. And I think some of you listen to it. I think he told me he gets 15,000 downloads a day. And so I'll do a 1 hour spot and I just get tons of contacts because he's built that. And that's only 15,000. You're talking about somebody who's doing a wrestling podcast with 1 million. And so ask yourself this question. If you wanted to create an audience of 10,000, 20,000, 50,000, 100,000 listens or downloads, what is the best avenue for that? So you started out in radio where you're going to go AM, and that's the whole thing about advertising in radio, right? Advertisers are going, well, what kind of listenership or viewership do you have? And then you'll know, because there's a lot of advertisements. And so, for example, the radio stations that you will go on, what type of, do you know the numbers of listeners that they have?
So the main one that I do is a country local, and they have a local afternoon drive time. I think that's important. Maybe it not be a national if you're in a smaller market. And so they're about 35,000 people. Okay. Is what the listenership is. Again, we're in a super small area.
And you said you don't have to necessarily be in your market. Are you in another show that's outside of your market?
I've done some other smaller surrounding markets. I feel, again, like we talked about before, it is more expensive in bigger markets, but I think it's relative. So we have a lot of small communities. So if you go south of Columbus, like for mortgage purposes for the government, everything outside of Columbus and Cincinnati is one market. It's one. So That's how small it is. I think there's a total of like 300,000 people outside of those two big cities in Southern Ohio. So I hit the all little smaller markets, and I've done successful with that. I've opened a new market in another small town because it's just underserved. And it's when I started looking at the HMDA numbers, there was hardly any FHA done, which I am government queen because I can make cash money on government. They they are so underserved for government, which is a perfect radio market. So I opened a small little office. I'm going down there and I'm doing, it's about an hour from me. I'm doing more marketing down there, more events down there. And then once I start getting a steady 2 or 3 a month, I'll start running ads there targeted at that market. So that's the thing too. I think you need to know what your market is. Who is your perfect client? And I don't know that people spend enough time thinking about that. My perfect client is a blue collar worker at a factory that feels disenfranchised, to be quite honest. And so those are the people I talk to when I'm on the radio. Have you been turned down? Have you been told no? We don't have a no file. Those kinds of things. It doesn't hurt anything to try. I know you're scared. Like our owner of our company, I was talking to him about some stuff and I said something about every single person is scared they're going to get turned down for a mortgage. And he was like, what are you talking about? That's not true. And I'm like, you're a multi-millionaire. You're not scared of anybody telling you no about money. The normal person is always scared that they're going to be told no. They want to buy a house. They've got their heart set on this. It's just human nature to expect that no. So we talk so much about that. We don't have a no file. We may say not right now, but we have a plan. Like those kinds of things that people are scared of. And we do it in a way that it attracts them and doesn't deter them. So I think that's really, I don't want the 800 borrower that in my market. I don't want those people because there aren't enough, for one. There aren't enough of people of that market, but that everybody else, those 75,000 people, let's say you've got, I don't know, 50 doctors and 50 dentists or whatever. So there's still 72,000 people that I want to reach. And so that small percentage in my market, I don't want. And I think that's true in any market. I think there are a lot more normal people than there are uber successful people. And so for me, I think those are the best people to talk to because people don't talk to them. I think that's why they respond.
I want to address something too, that we're not real estate people. We don't have to physically show people homes. I don't need to go to a lockbox and show people homes. And because of that, there's nothing stopping us from doing loans in 50 states. 49 if you don't want to cross over to Hawaii. You don't want to take the plane ride. But there's nothing stopping you from going to the Hawaii market. So yeah, you'll have some brick and mortars that you probably can't get lessons in. But the point is that if you're in a bigger market, if you're in a smaller market, great, this is resonating with you. And if you're in a bigger market, you might want to look at expanding out to smaller markets as well too.
Especially right now, because I coach, in all transparency, I coach in another platform and I've got somebody in LA and she's talking about there's no leads, there's no this. I'm like, go out of that market. And I'm always surprised. And I had a guy in Florida. I said, Scott, just go and make your cup bigger. Go into a different market. Oh, I'd have to drive an hour.
No, you don't.
Oh, do you like to fucking eat? That's what I said, because that's the kind of coach I am, because Kai's coached me before too. But I'm like, you want to eat. I don't give a shit if you don't want to drive an hour. I used to drive 2 hours one way to work. So you either want to eat or you don't. You want to succeed or you don't. So
yeah, which you don't have to anyways. For example, Crystal's still up there with about 30 units a month and she's in Colorado, but she probably does about at least 10 units a month outside of the state of Colorado with realtors and consumers that she's never met in person and she's never set foot in that market. And so let's talk a little bit about the experience, because I think the modern originator, you have to look at the experience, right? You have to look at the experience of when a buyer comes in. We're huge fans of using tools, whether it's Mortgage Coach, MBS Highway, and Lender Launchpad to create that better experience. And I can be across the country, but I can create a better experience than a local person. Mm-hmm. Using technology with today's consumer. And Gen Z, it's going to be mandatory.
Let me tell you something. I'm going to disagree with you, not 100%, but a little bit.
Yeah.
And everybody always says, oh, it's because you're in a small market. Okay, whatever. I've heard that shit for years. You don't have competition. I also don't have as many loans. Oh, you got all the realtors. I don't have as many to get from. So if I fuck one thing up, then the whole town knows it by the end of the day. Like it goes on Facebook. Everybody knows it. So I've got different challenges for sure, but I've still got challenges. But I do think that, yes, you can work in other markets, you can work remotely. But I also think that we do face to face, and everybody like, oh, when I say that, but I'm telling you, I think that's what sets us apart. And I was telling Khai earlier today, I was talking to one of my coaching guys yesterday, and I said, I don't religiously contact my past database like I should. I just don't. But we get a ton. I get as many referrals a quarter from past clients as I do from agents. And so I think that is because of our process and our experience up front. And I'll go through it quick. So you call, because most of our people call, even if they do it online, it was the same process. My front end girl takes the application, sets the loan consultation, pulls CAVers, pulls credit. Somebody structures it. Jill, my licensed originator and office manager, calls back at the scheduled time and goes over options, follows up until they get into contract. Then we sign their initial disclosures face to face. Everybody's, what is wrong with you? So we sign them face to face, and we go over every single line of the loan estimate, line by line, and tell them where every single dime is going. And that's what we tell them. And I do that on my radio ads too. It is your money, and you have every right to know where it's going. You will never be surprised when you come to Hometown Lenders. So they know. So we don't get at the end somebody trying to get a discount. Oh, I didn't know. Oh, I didn't. That does not happen in our office. The only lender credits that go out are for tolerances. That's it. So we probably don't have anything over $100 ever as a lender credit. And also, if they get to the end, they're like, oh, I'm not going to close. And don't close. I've got a house. It doesn't really matter to me if you close or not. And so then they decide they're going to close. They're just trying to get a discount. And we charge $3,000 up front on every single transaction. And now we're charging points too. So there's that. We had a past client, this is his third deal. He closed 2 weeks ago. He came in to do his initial disclosures. Jill went through them with him, and his buy down was $24,000. And so Mika was in the office next to the conference room, and Jill went through it. And so I've got to pay all that plus the closing costs and my down payment. She said, yeah. Jill, you're not the cheapest, but you fucking get shit. And so he signed, he closed. So I think that face-to-face helps with long-term referrals. And then it goes back as processing. But I've got one person dedicated to calling twice a week. She calls on Monday and Friday, all the agents, all the things. So those things I think are as important, if not more important, than us doing something every 90 days to reach out to clients. I really think that our experience is why we get so many past client referrals.
Absolutely.
So first of all, nobody's concentrating on that anymore, I feel like.
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, if you ever disagree with me again, you're not coming back.
Sorry.
No, I'm just kidding. Here's the reality though.
If I didn't disagree with you, you would think I was sick.
Oh yeah, I know. This was our coaching calls a lot. It's just us arguing. Actually, I'm going to agree with you because what it is, but here's what you really said. Okay. Face to face is very strong, but everything that you said was like 20% face to face. It was like 80% your experience. That's the reality. Right. Because any one of our clients here, we can compete against the face-to-face borrower. So let's say Adam, for example, you want to compete against a local face-to-face loan officer in Rhode Island. I think Adam can beat them if he provides a better virtual experience, because I think a lot of people face-to-face. So what? They show up face-to-face. Let's take your app. Give me your stuff. I'll see you tomorrow. It's just like a handshake. That's not what you described though. That is not what you described. And if that is orchestrated, even on Zoom, it's going to beat the regular experience. I think that's the point, because 80% of what you described to me was the experience, like 20% of it was face-to-face. But I do believe that at the end of the day, face-to-face does
done correctly. Right.
Yeah, exactly.
And something else, if you are a local market and you're closing everything local, we started 7 years ago closing every deal in our office. And everybody said, you can't do it. The agents won't have it. My money, my rules. Yeah. So you're going to show up at my office. They have to go somewhere, because when I talk to people in bigger markets, they're like, oh, nobody's going to do that. They're going somewhere. Who gives a shit where they go? So we have gotten deals from sellers, either their deals, their kids' deals, or they're selling an investment property and send them to us. So I think that's really important too, if you can do that. And then of course, there's a whole thing. We do cookies and we do all this stuff, and they get a picture of their house. It's a watercolor, and like it's a whole, again, an experience. So if you're in a local market, you can do those things too that people aren't doing, especially after COVID. They're not doing it. And that can set you apart. And I did honestly, selfishly, so I could control funding because the title company sucked, but it has been huge for us.
Yeah. And there's a scale. So I want to address something. What Jen does really well, she controls the client. Tyler does that really well. Jen and Tyler know each other really well. There's this perception in the mortgage industry that we have to do what consumers want and we have to do what realtors want. And what's really happening is that when you do that, you're actually giving them the perception that you're not in control. So I have this rule in life, which is the alpha always wins. The alpha always wins in everything. They win in relationships, they win in business, they win as parents. If you do everything that your kids want, your kids are going to control you. If you do everything your realtors want, your clients want, they're going to control you. And what it does is it just doesn't give somebody a sense of confidence. I want everybody to think about every relationship you've ever had, whether it was personal, love, friendship, or business. And do you respect a person more or less if they're a yes man, yes sir, or do you respect them more if they take control and they lead? And that's what Jen is doing. She's taking control. She's leading. It's my business, my way. But more importantly, she's saying, this is how we do business because she's giving them confidence, saying, this is our process. And when it's such a well-orchestrated process is not necessarily picking up your phone anytime it rings and doing an app how your client wants to do it. We have a process for this. And I think that there's this misconception too, that once you give any pushback to a buyer, they're going to go, that's just inconvenient. I'm going to go someplace else. Number one, maybe you should go someplace else because you're that entitled, right? And then you're such a prima donna that you have to have everything your way and you're going to control the transaction anyways. But most consumers, when they look for a referral, they're looking for somebody to help them. They're looking for somebody to take the lead and say, this is my process. And that's always been the thing about you. It's no, I'm going to create a process. This is my way, but I'm going to show you that I have leadership, I have confidence, I have knowledge. And this is what it is. And it's pretty ballsy for you to charge $3,000 up front. You want to talk about that for 20 seconds, how you do that? Is that, and what exactly that entails?
So the $3,000 is the origination fee. We just do it as one flat fee. I mean, we could break it up, but at the end of the day, it's the same amount of money. And so we just tell them what we provide for that. And so are there agents that don't refer to us because of that? Yep, there are. And they're agents I don't want to work with. And so if they are at certain brokerages, then I say, you do realize that they're making 7%. Because we have a brokerage that makes 7%. They're usually ones that complain about me charging $3,000. And so if you go, even though the buyer's not paying it, if you go with this agent that I refer you to, you'll get the house cheaper because they don't have to pay that extra percentage. And they'll always go with my agent every single time. So I think it is about being in control. And I'm not a control freak. I just want to win. So I don't want to do any of it. And so for me, I haven't taken an application in years. I can't get an Encompass. I don't do any of that. So my team does everything. I don't talk to buyers. I don't talk to really agents about deals anymore. So you can 100%, if you build a team out, do that. But it is what you said, Khai. I mean, it's about knowing your job and showing them that you know how to do it well. And even title companies, I am no title company's best friend, never have been. And I will cut them as quick as I'll take them on. And so what I do is if it's an agent and it's a title company we don't want to use, I just say, this is not true, but I say, we've got 3 unsellable loans with them right now, and I can't afford to do business with them. Yes. So if you would like to guarantee that when this loan is unsellable because they do poor work, then we'll use them. If not, we're using my title company. And they do. So for years here, the title companies kept saying, loan officers don't determine title. Loan officers don't determine title. And so I went to lunch with wanted them to do something. They said no. And they said, you don't dictate title. I was like, okay, then I'll find some. And that's when I said, my money, my motherfucking rules. And I will find somebody that does. And so I did. And then a month later, they called back begging me for business because I took 52 deals somewhere else. And so don't tell me what I don't control because it is my money and my motherfucking rules. Like, I'm on the hook for this. And I tell agents, like, long after you have spent your commission check and forgotten their name, I will get a call from a regulator about this loan. And so I'm not going to do shortcuts. I'm not going to do it your way. I don't care that you've never heard of it. Like, you're not on the hook for $300,000. So I don't really care. So I have also told agents, and this is another aside, but this is what I do. I had one agent that didn't like what time we picked to close after we got it done in 12 days, but whatever, that's a whole nother story. And I said, Morgan, I understand that you want to be at the closing and you are more than welcome to give him your $300,000 on Friday. But my $300,000 will be available on Tuesday. And that was the end of that because it's my money, my rules.
I was with a
So
realtor and I was with a realtor in Vegas and he said, newer realtors don't understand that because a veteran realtor would say, what are they going to do? Cancel? I mean, what are they going to do? Cancel?
yeah. Oh yeah, I will.
You can't. With that, somebody asked in the chat, Dave asked, what is your USP as a process? And here's what the real USP is. It's leadership. Okay. The USP is leadership. Whether you call that process, whether you call that knowledge, whether you call that education, it's leadership. It's establishing yourself as the alpha and saying, I know how to get shit done. And if you want to get shit done, if you want to have that house, you want to qualify, you want to close, you want to have some peace of mind, you're going to follow me. And I think that it's a combination of your process. It's a combination of putting your name out there. It's a combination of the tone, how you talk to people, how you take control. It's a combination of your aura. It's a little bit of everything to establish yourself as the alpha, to establish yourself as a leader. And I think everybody here listening, you can tell that Jen is just the badass alpha in the room, right? It's a fight between me and Jen with two alphas. But
It's also telling the story too.
Yeah.
So that is huge. And your message that you give, whether it be on video or in a podcast or on radio or TV or whatever, it's telling the stories, and it's telling the stories of your clients, not the stories of you. So I think that is really what connected with people, because storytelling is just the oldest form of marketing. So on my spots, I talk about this client. So I'll go over quickly because we've got 15 minutes. So I do 20 spots a week that are canned spots, 30-second spots. I'll do short stories in those, and then some program stuff or changes or some name I made up for whatever kind of loan it is. I just make up names for them, because if you make up the name, then you own it. So I've got all these random programs that nobody else has, and we call them this and call them that. So those are 30-second spots I do. But so Tuesday through Friday, I do live spots with the DJ. And in those spots, we talk about a particular client. So it's like, Chris will say, I have a list, and I send them to her, and Chris will say, oh, we were talking before we got on air, and you were telling me about this family and how quick the process was for them, and tell us about it, Jen. And so I was like, okay, so the Smith family, they called us on whatever day. They were a referral from a past client, which means the world to me, because you trusted me with your friends and your family, because you had a good experience, and there's no better way to start a relationship with a new client than that. And we were able to get them from submission to clear to close in 12 days. And they, whatever, maybe they started somewhere else, and Chris will say that too. Oh, tell us about these people that made the big mistake of going to another lender, but then ended up at hometown lenders, and what you did to help them get into their home. And then I tell the story. So those things I think are really important. And the thing too, people are like, oh, they don't want me to tell your story. Bullshit. They want to hear about themselves. I took a picture this is the beginning of COVID, to run an ad. And the guy, when everybody was backed up in underwriting and we were at 24 hours. So I said, hey, can I take your picture for some marketing on Facebook? And he's like, yeah, but only if you'll tell my story on the radio. And so it was a refi. We talk about saving money, save $2,500 a month or whatever it is. Telling those stories is huge. And I think that is one really good reason for us that it has worked, is people hear us talking about people that are like them. And, so I'll either use their first names if they're not married, their last names if they are married. And that way nobody really knows who it is. In Ohio, it's all public record anyway, if they want to go look it up. So it doesn't really matter. But people like to hear their stories on the radio. And I just think that's really important as the message more than anything.
Yeah, it's case studies. That's how infomercials work. Infomercials is, I always think of P90X. It's 1 hour of like 20 different fitness stories. And then at the very end, they talk about the system, right? Adam asked, you're this personality, you're this radio personality, you're this media personality. How do your teammates overcome clients that call in and talk to you and get some and relent to work with someone on your team? I'll let you answer, but my guess, and I want Jen to answer too. My guess is that, again, I think the USP is leadership. And I think that when you are a leader, that you're going to convey to people that this is also my team that I lead. And they do shit the way that I want to do it, and it's going to be right. And you're going to have the confidence in them because I trust them. It's no different than saying, hey, you want something to take care of? I'll say, yeah, fine, Lindsay will take care of it for you. I don't think everybody's going to doubt that. And if in past moments that wasn't the case, then I just replace that process, replace that person. Isn't that? It's just you looking at, if you trust me, then you're going to trust that. You're going to trust
I think that's more of an agent thing where they think they have to work with you, but we overcame that too. So when I started my office here, it was me and my processor. And so they always worked with me. They called me from 7 a.m. till midnight. And so when I hired Jill, there was one particular agent that he was like, you need to fire her because he didn't like her. And I said, because I'm an asshole, when you start paying my bills, you can tell me who to hire and who to fire. But who I am firing right now is you, because I don't want to work with somebody that doesn't respect my team. And so I never worked with him again. I said, I will not take referrals from you. Don't even bother. You're going to have to go somewhere else. So I think that's more of an agent thing. Buyers don't really care. They don't know.
Yeah.
And I don't even do my friends' shit. Like I don't touch anything. My best friend bought a house. She kept asking me questions. I'm like, don't know. Don't. Finally, she stopped. I'm like, I don't do loans. I do not do loans. I think that's a process that you get to with agents. So you think everybody cares and they just don't. And I talk about my team on the radio. I'll talk about Jill. So it's not that big a deal. Even in our Google reviews, people, they don't talk about me. They talk about Jill. They talk about Katie.
You know what it is, Adam? I'm actually going to point this out. I actually said this in my Crystal interview. If you ever heard that, I recorded that a year ago. A lot of the best originators, they have a right-hand person. It's like the Scottie Pippen to the Michael Jordan. So a lot of top producers, it's not like they're here and they have this team that's down here. It's usually here and there's like a right-hand person. So Jill is Jen's right-hand person. And Jill's been with Jen forever because we started coaching forever.
Yeah, and she's been with me 10 years.
So for me, who's my right-hand person? It's Rob. I know that when I'm gone, everybody can depend on Rob to take care of things. When I was doing loans, it was Brooke, right? And so as you're building your team, you may love your team of 3-4 people, but who's the person who's you when you're gone? Because they're the person, I think about it like a basketball team, like when Jordan's out, as long as Pippen is in, you know that they got control of the court. And I think it's really important that as you build a team, whether it's your LOA, your processor, your production partner, somebody's going to stand out more than everybody else. Somebody's going to have the capability to make decisions like you. Somebody's going to have the personal dedication and sacrifice to where your business, like it's their business. And Jill's always been that way with you.
She has been. When I interviewed her, she said, my job is to make your life easier. That's what she said.
And so you're looking for somebody to really stand out like that. And so if you have so we talk about the alpha, it's like the second alpha of the group. So you're going to be this alpha and you've got these, and when you hire people, you do want people with low D. You want a lot of like high C, high detailed people. But if you're like the only D and everybody's like that, when you're gone, everybody's always going to turn to you. They're always going to ask you questions and then you can't really step away. But Jill's got some D in her. So that's your second high D personality or middle D personality in your business. That's not enough to conflict with you. And they still want to be like your partner, your colleague, your vice president, that's something. But the vice president still has to have an alpha nature about them. So let's talk about a couple things as we finish. People talk about consumer direct all the time and they say there's consumer direct and there's referrals. And I say referrals, if you go directly to referral sources, it's like the fastest way to get business, but it could be the most volatile way to get business because when your referral partners aren't doing well, then it's going to drop too, which is what we're finding in consumers. And so the reason why we go consumer direct. Now, I always tell people I love consumer direct. I don't have a problem with consumer direct, but please understand that consumer direct, there's generally some type of costs and there's some type of time. Whether you're paying for advertising time or whether you're just paying for just time or cost. Another way to do it, and let me put this out for people, you can pay the equivalent in Facebook ads. So let's say you're paying $4,000 a month for a radio spot. You can pay $4,000 a month and put yourself in front of 50,000 impressions of people. And you can basically put up video and create your own show just through Facebook ads. It doesn't have to be organic. You can pay to play. And you just have to ask yourself this question. How do I put myself in front of 15,000, 30,000 people? Trust me, you tell Facebook you're going to give them $4,000 a month. They'll find a way to put you in front of 40,000 people on a regular basis or Instagram. You'll become a hit before you know it. And then it's always click here, follow my channel, and then you get all the organic leads.
Mm-hmm. And it's message. It's message.
Yes.
What you're saying to people, you have to listen. So I go onto Facebook and I look at what people are bitching about. And so when inflation started and gas prices, I was like, okay, so this is what I need to talk about. So then it was refinance, get money to get through this time, that you can pay for your gas, you can pay for your groceries, you can pay for your increased utilities. Then when rates change, then we'll get you back into a similar rate to what you have now. But this is a short-term fix for you. So it's just pay attention to what people are complaining about and then give them the solution for it. So now it's rates. Oh my God, rates. I never say rates went up. Rates changed like they always change. So what's going to happen now is you're not going to pay over list 30, 50, 100,000. I'm running an ad. I just started it yesterday. People, you talk about rates being high, but you're not paying 30, 50, $100,000 over. when your buddy who bought at a 3% rate paid 100 grand over, that 100 grand doesn't go away, but your rate can go back down.
Right.
He's never getting rid of that 100 grand, and it's a wash. So, like explaining those things to people, because agents are like, oh my God, rates are high. The shit they put on social, I'm like, shut up. Why are you saying that stuff? But it's just giving the solution to fixing the pain, relieving their pain. So that's what your message needs to be. And then triumphant stories of people that you helped.
Yeah. By the way, when I say Facebook ads, I don't mean putting out ads. I'm saying buy Facebook ads to basically start your own show and just tell a story. And you can pay your way through Facebook ads to basically
drive traffic to your podcast or whatever.
But you can create a Facebook ad and never really sell anything. You can just talk about stories and drive interest and do funny things. I'm just saying the goal is that. Also, I wanted to point out to also when you mentioned controlling title agents, I feel the same way about listing agents. There's no reason why, especially when people say I'm a listing agent, and I say, no, it's great. The fact that you're a listing agent, you need a dedicated lender more than ever. And so it's my builder approach, right? Listing agents are like, why do I need a dedicated lender? Because that's what the buyer brings the lender. And I say, but let me ask you a question. If a builder were going to come into this neighborhood and they were going to put up 50 units, they bring their own lender, and that's seller's lender. Why? They do that because of consistency and reliability of closing. So let me ask you a question. As a listing agent, you think about your last 50 transactions. That's actually an embarrassing number to ask because for them, that's probably like the last 5 to 10 years for 50 transactions. But the reality is like, how many different lenders did you work with and how much of a pain it was for you to work with a different lender every single time and not to know what was going on with the transaction? How much different would it have been if you would have offered a lender and you would have asked the buyer to cross qualify, or you would have said, just like builders do? Because when you control the lending experience, then you control your sale and then you can give your seller peace of mind. Yeah. And listen, when you're on the other side, it sucks, right? When you're the buyer's lender and you're going against a seller's lender, but you got to play both sides. You got to play both sides at some point because, and especially with the market the way that it is right now, because a lot of sellers are having a hard time selling properties. And so we have to teach them, a lot of listing agents have to teach them how to do buy downs and how they work. And we have to control the narrative of this is a better market for people to buy. And there's ways for you to creatively sell. So whatever you think, the thing about this industry and what Jen has done, what I want everybody to pay attention to is everybody thinks that you're supposed to do something a certain way, whether it's this industry or whether it's life. And Jen, like myself at times, is a contrarian and say, no, why can't it just be done this way? Because this is the way that I think it's done in a better way. And this is the way that I want to do it. And when you do it with conviction, when you do it with perseverance, you do it with some intelligence, you're going to get a lot of confidence from people to follow you. And you're also going to get things like Walmart was a game changer when they came into the industry. If you really watch the story of Walmart, they control the entire supply chain process. They said, no, I'm not just going to sit here and let you guys dictate how I do things. I'm going to control everything from raw manufactured parts all the way to delivery. And that's why they were able to build this way, because they control the entire process. And by controlling the entire process, they control price, they control supply. And that's what you've done. But more importantly, going back to the original topic, you become a name. You become a
brand. Yeah, you become a brand. And I just, somebody asked, how much do I pay? So for the 20 spots, the 4 lives, and then I also do a radio show with a broker on Mondays. That's about $3,200 a month, which I know, again, it's cheaper than a smaller market. But what that does for me is it gives me, I told Khai earlier, 30 to 60 pre-approved buyers for me to give to agents every quarter. But here's the key to that, which we learned the hard way. You've got to track it. You've got to control it. So right now I am actually, because it's been shit's been falling out of the sky for years, right? I felt like Chicken Little forever. I was like, this is not going to last forever. And so now we're finally here. Finally, it's not what it was. So we are making more of a system of, we're going to send you a text. We're going to send you an email. We're going to give you 90 days. I've been having these conversations with the people I refer to. I'm going to give you 90 days to get this buyer into a house. At 90 days, I'm then going to reach out to them. If you have not communicated with them, if you have not done what you're supposed to do, I'm going to flip them to another agent because I spend too much money. Because I have had, in the past 6 months, I've had some lazy ass fucking agents that I have honestly made, to be quite honest, with the amount of business I've given them, that have dropped the ball and not converted. And I've lost thousands of dollars because they did not follow up. or they didn't tell me that they wanted to buy in a different market and they just told the people, oh, I don't work in that market. Instead of giving it back to me to refer it out to someone else, they just fucking stopped calling them. And so that's thousands of dollars. So I am taking huge control over those leads now, and we're steering them to the ones that we want them to be at. And then we're tracking it and we're taking it back if they don't perform. And I've got my number one guy converts 90% of them. The second person, who's a part-timer, converts 60, which shocked me. So you've got to track who you're giving stuff to, because at the beginning of this year, I thought like the number 2 agent in our association was getting our shit closed. We'd given her 9 leads in the first quarter and she only closed 2. So April 1st, she got cut off. I can't afford to do business with you. It's the same as if an agent handed you a lead and you didn't call them or you didn't follow up or whatever you do to drop the ball, they're going to stop referring to you. Why can't I do that? It's my lead that I actually spent money to get. I didn't just put a post on Facebook and my cousin's brother's uncle calls me. I've actually spent real money for this. So we are getting super, super strict with it of who we refer to and what we expect. And if you don't like it, that's cool. You don't have to take my leads because someone will do what I want them to do. Like I said, someone will always do what I want them to do when I hand them money.
We're at the end. I'll say one thing and at the end. Also, to remember when you go consumer direct, when you work referrals, we're used to getting people at a I'm ready to go stage. But when you work consumer direct, and I'm trying to remember what Tom Ferry's 3 stages are, but Tom Ferry, who's a big real estate coach, there's the I'm just first thinking about buying a home, and they're usually more than a year out. And then it's I want to start preparing to buy a home. They're within a year. And then it's I'm ready to pre-approve and pre-qualify. Matt Barber, who's one of our clients, I was talking to him the other day about he gets a lot of leads from social media. And sometimes they seem to be flaky. I'm like, they're not flaky. They're just still in this first stage. And so if you're going to go to consumer direct, you have to build the proper funnel, the proper nurturing funnel that if you know that they're still a year out, it's going to be a lot more educational material and just keeping them in your loop. So they always want to come back because they want to learn more. And then when they're in the prep stage, that's when you might do a pre-qualification, just give them an idea of what payments would be like. And then they're finally going to move to that stage. And so it's a longer nurturing process. And again, consumer direct it is a process, but guys, we're not talking about getting out of this market. We're talking about, this is like the next 5 to 10 years. The market is dramatically shifted with inventory down, with technology changing, with consumers changing. So we might have a part 2 for Jen to come back. I have to go because Mark Boone, who accidentally jumped on this call, he's waiting for my next call, but good to have you on, Jen.
Thank you for having me.
Good to have you back. I hope
nice to meet you guys.
Permanently in some way. She is a badass and she is the epitome of be the alpha and just control everything that you do. I love it.
And if you have any questions, just send me a message on Facebook. You can friend me on there. We can chat and I'll give you my digits.
Yeah.
That's what old people say, like Khai.
Yeah, exactly. I just keep myself young going to hairstyles concerts. Okay. All right. Thanks, Jen. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Bye-bye.